Before we get started, I just wanted to remind you I'll be doing a Q&A in episode 25, so go ahead and leave any questions you have for me in the comments below, or you can find me on Instagram at 7cardflushpoker and message me there.
Hey, welcome back to the vlog, episode 23. We find ourselves here on a Saturday. Orange City is running their $1,000 high hand promotion, where they're paying out $1,000 high hands every 20 minutes in select hours. And a lot of the viewers have been telling me I got to come out and be part of this action. It gets pretty wild up here. It's just before noon, and there's already 9 tables of 1-2 running and like 20 total tables running in the room. So should be busy. In episode 22, I felt I played a lot better after some lackluster performances in 20 and 21. So I'm feeling pretty good, looking to go in, make smart decisions, make good bet sizes, and win some money. So let's get to it.
When I walked in, there was a wait list for a 1-3 game with a $10 bomb pot every dealer change. And this is exciting for a couple reasons. One, I never get to play bomb pots, and I really want to play one. I see all the other vloggers do it, so of course I want in on the action. And two, the max buy-in for the 1-3 game is $500. So it's a little bit deeper stacked of a game, which I want to try to start playing. So I'm on the wait list for that, but I'm going to start the day at 1-2, off to the first hand. We were in +1 when we looked down at Queen Jack offsuit. It folds to me and I open the action for $12. It folds all the way around to the small blind who calls, and the big blind calls as well, so we're off to a flop 3 ways. The flop is King 8-10 with 2 spades, so I flopped an open-ended straight draw here. It checks to me and I continue on for $20. Both blinds make the call, so we're off to the turn. The turn is a 5 of clubs, doesn't really change anything. The action actually checks through on this card. I should probably be betting here to fold out other draws, but I don't know if I have it in me to fire a third barrel on the river, so calling gives me the chance to bail on a bad river or fire on a blank. The river is an ace of spades. Good card giving me my straight, but scary card because it puts the spade flush out there. The small blind checks, and the big blind bets $20. Again, with the spades on the board, I don't want to raise here and then get shoved on and be put in a really tough decision, so I opt to just call. The small blind folds. I show my hand and he shows Queen Jack for the chop. In the next hand, we're on the button and we look down at Jack 9 of hearts. There's a call from early position before the hijack raises to $12. I make the call, as does the early position limper. We're off to a flop 3 ways. The flop is King 4-8 rainbow. It checks to the hijack who bets $10. I make the call, and then the early position player check raises to $25. The hijack folds. I only have backdoor draws, and I know that I'm behind at this point, so I end up making the fold. Early position flips over his hand, shows King Jack, so a jack on the turn could have gotten me in a lot of trouble. There's a button straddle. We're in the cutoff with King Jack offsuit. The action folds all the way around to me, and I called the button straddle. The button straddler's name is Roy. He's a new vlog watcher. Pretty nice guy. Not nice this hand, though. Roy raises to $22. Roy seems very capable of doing this with any 2 cards, so I go ahead and make the call. We're off to the flop. The flop is Ace Jack 7 with 2 spades, so I flop middle pair here. I check to see what Roy's going to do, and he actually checks behind, so we're off to the turn. The turn is a king of clubs, so I've turned 2 pair. I bet out for $30 on this, and then Roy raises me to $85. Queen 10 did get there, but I'm not worried about him having that. Realizing he could be doing this with any 2 cards, as he's been pretty aggressive since he sat down. I don't think he'd do this with a straight or a set, because he would want to keep all of my bluffs in. So with all of this in mind, I re-raise all in. This should put some real pressure on any hand that isn't the nuts. Roy snaps me off. Uh-oh. The river is a queen, a pretty scary card. I don't think I'm good here, and I flip over my hand, and Roy shows King Jack for another chop. We're in the big blind. We look down at 8-9 of spades. There are 4 callers before the action gets to me, and I bump it up to $17. Only the small blind calls, so we're off to a flop heads up. The flop is 8 high, but it's all diamonds. The small blind checks. I put out a bet of $25, and the small blind calls, so we're off to the turn. The turn is a king of diamonds. It's a really bad card. My opponent checks, and I decide to go ahead and just check back and try to get to showdown. The river is a 4 of hearts, and the small blind leads on this card for $25. It's not a very big bet, but again, the flop wasn't great to begin with, and the turn is a horrible card, so I'm just forced to fold here. We're in the small blind this time, and we look down at pocket tens. There are 2 callers before the action gets to me, and I bump it up to $12. Roy in the big blind then 3 bets me to $48. It folds back to me, and I don't really want to play this hand out of position, and Roy seems pretty competent, and I think he's capable of doing this a little bit light or something like suited connectors. So I end up jamming for $159 total, and once again, Roy snaps me off. As the dealer begins to burn and turn, I ask Roy if I stepped in it. The board runs out king high. Roy says no. I show my hand, and he flashes me ace queen offsuit before mucking. So not suited connectors, but I do win the hand. We're on the button now. We look down at queen 10 offsuit. There are 2 callers before the action gets to me, and I bump it up to $12. Both the small blind and the big blind, who's probably one of the splashier players at the table, make the call, so we're off to a flop 3 ways. The flop is queen high with 2 diamonds. The action checks to me and I bet out for $30. Only the small blind calls here, so we're off to the turn. The turn is an ace of clubs, so not a great card. The small blind checks to me and I decide to go ahead and just check back and see a river. The river is a king of spades, so about the worst run out I could have asked for. The small blind, who's Roy, thinks about it and then checks. He only has about $35 behind, and I feel like he's setting me up, so I just check back. I tell him I have a queen, and he mucks his hand, so once again, I win. Let me give some context in this next hand. Roy is sitting directly to my left, watching my vlog, learning about me as this hand unfolds. We're in the small blind this time, and we look down at ace 7 offsuit. Under the gun makes the call and it folds all the way around to me. I decide to go ahead and toss in the extra $1 and the big blind checks. We're off to a flop. Flop is deuce 9 jack rainbow and the action checks through, so we're off to the turn. The turn is an ace, and on this card I go ahead and lead out for $10. Then Roy the big blind raises to $21. It folds back to me, and I don't want to just call this. I want to represent some strength, so I decide to raise. But I don't think my raise size is very good because I only raised to $55. He calls pretty quickly and we're off to the turn. The river is a 5. I decide to go ahead and check, and I'll let you listen into what Roy says.
What's so funny is I just just saw you going crazy with ace 5 because people told you need to go crazy with ace 5 a little more than normal.
People love the wheel cards, especially the suited ones.
I don't really see what I can get value from that I'm beating. I got 2 pair.
Roy checks and he shows 2 pair with jack 9, so I'm glad I didn't fire on the river. It could have cost me more money. And Roy, don't leave value on the table next time. There is a button straddle. We are under the gun and we look down at king 10 offsuit. The small blind calls the straddle and then the big blind bumps it up to $17. I make the call, Roy and +1 calls, +2 calls as well, and the button calls, so we're off multi-way to a flop. The flop is 8-8 deuce, so not great. The big blind leads for $25, and this board shouldn't connect with him very much. And I can raise, but he was the pre-flop raiser of the straddle, so I elect to just go ahead and call and try to hit a turn. Everybody else folds, we're off to the turn heads up. The turn is a 7 of spades, so once again I've missed. My opponent leads for $35. This bet just screams value, and I have almost no showdown value, so I let it go. There's another button straddle. We're in the cutoff and we look down at a vlog favorite, jack 8 offsuit. The small blind calls and then the action folds all the way around to me. I elect to make the call and the button checks, so we're off to the flop. The flop is 4-8 king rainbow, so not a great flop. The small blind leads for $12, and at that price I feel I can continue, so we both end up making the call. We're still off to the turn 3 ways. The turn is a queen of spades, and the small blind slows down and checks. So I pick up on this as weakness, and I decide to go ahead and bet out. I bet $45. I'm really trying to fold out Roy in the button, as I feel I can beat the small blind. Even if he calls the bet, I think I can outplay him on the river. Roy on the button does fold, the small blind thinks about it, and then he also folds, and we win. A few orbits later, I was finally called for the 1-3 game. Roy is also going to join me over there, as well as my buddy Dave, the guy that got me into poker. So, playing with a really fun group, and we're going to start off with the bomb pot. Now, the rules are pretty simple. Everybody puts $10 in before the cards are dealt, and then we go straight to the flop, and the action picks up after that. In my first bomb pot hand, I'm under the gun, and I look down at 9-10 offsuit. The flop is 10-4-4 with 2 hearts. The action checks to me and I bet out for $20 here, an absolutely terrible sizing with $80 in the middle. I'm not used to this yet, and that was a big mental mistake on my part. +2 makes the call, the hijack calls, and the button calls. We're off to the turn 4 ways. The The turn is an 8 of spades, so I don't improve here. It checks around to the button, who bets $30. I decide to go ahead and call since I'm getting a great price, thinking I might actually still be able to have the winning hand here if I can spike a 10 on the river. Both the other players call, so we're off to the river 4 ways. The river is a jack of hearts, so I absolutely do not get there. It checks around to the hijack, who bets $50. The action's on the button now, and then he raises to $150. I can't win this hand, so I go ahead and fold, as does +2. The button ends up showing pocket 4s for quads, and the hijack mucks, so he wins the hand. I did one more bomb pot during this session, but nothing really came from it. They're fun, I just need to realize there's $80 in the middle by the time we see some cards. We were in +2 when we looked down at Queen 7 of spades. It folds to me and I decide to go ahead and call the blind. Then the player in +3 raises to $12. The small blind calls and I call as well. We're off to a flop 3 ways. The flop is Queen King 4. I check and Roy in +3 bets $21. The small blind makes the call and I decide I want to go ahead and put some pressure on these guys, and I raise to $101 total. I don't know if this move will work in terms of getting a king to fold, but they actually both end up making the fold and I win this hand. We're in the big blind now and we look down at Queen 10 offsuit. There's a call from under the gun and it folds around to the hijack, who also calls. Then it folds to the small blind, who raises to $14. I go ahead and make the call. Roy in under the gun makes the call and the hijack calls as well. We're off to a flop 4 ways. The flop is 10 Jack 5 rainbow. And on this board, the small blind actually shoves for $55. I've got middle pair and some backdoor draw, so for $55, I think this is a price I can afford to call and see a turn, so I do. Then I get the bad news. Roy comes back over the top for $225 total. I don't feel so confident with middle pair and backdoor draws anymore, so I sheepishly fold. The turn is a king, and the river is a 9. Roy flips over 10 Jack for 2 pair, and the other player mucks. It's a real bummer, but can you really call $200 with middle pair? Roy thinks I'm better than that.
Yeah, but you're gonna call off with second pair? Better than that.
He really is new to this channel. In the final hand of the night, we're in the small blind and we look down at Jack 9 offsuit. There's one limper before the low jack raises it up to $12. The button makes the call, I make the call, and the original limper calls, so we're off to a flop 4 ways. The flop is 3-4-9 with 2 hearts. I take the lead here and I bet out for $40. I'm looking to build a pot with top pair and a backdoor flush draw, but everybody folds and I win. Shortly thereafter, the table broke, so I decided to go ahead and wrap it up and call it a day.
All right, so there we go. Episode 23 in the books. Just not a great day. I didn't have a ton of premium hands. I chopped 3 separate times today, which seems like a lot for one session. I don't know. Kind of a weird day. So into the game for $700, out for $430. So loss of $270 in about 5 hours. So not great, but could have been way worse. I really enjoyed playing the 1-3 with the bomb pot. I really want to try to see if I can incorporate that into my channel and see if the card room will run that more, because we had a really good time playing that. So if you enjoyed, like and subscribe. See you next time.
If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel for more poker content. And you can follow me on Instagram at 7cardflushpoker.